Castrol Honda VTR is the follow-up to 1999's Castrol Honda World Superbike Team Racing, and this sequel saw a release in Europe and in Japan for the PlayStation in 2001. It is a quite rare game that many people don't really know about, and with regards to being released in Europe, it was only sold in certain countries, so not everywhere in Europe had access to it. And the game follows up with being able to play as various racers from the Honda brand all throughout the 2000 World Championship season. That gives access to a variety of different game modes and features with 2-player race modes, championships, time trials and practice modes, so that you can get familiar with the variety of tracks that are available in the game. Like the first entry in the series, this is more of a simulation focused approach to racing games, and with bike games more specifically, that allows you to also change out and tweak certain aspects of your gears and certain ratios of your bike customization settings, so that you can have full control over every aspect of your bike's performance. But one of the things that you'll notice right away, as even though this is technically a sequel to the first game in the series, when you look at it visually, very little has changed with regards to how it plays, looks, feels, even with the tracks that are on offer. While it does have some additional tracks that weren't in the first game, it does have some of those original tracks that were featured originally also. And these selection of games would also be later rebranded under the likes of XS Moto and even the Sport Superbike budget entry series that also saw a release on the PlayStation, but they didn't have the official brands tied to them. And if you've played those games, you'll notice that with the textures on the likes of the racers, they won't have all the official like Castrol brands or whatever. They have all more so made up brands. The only real difference in terms of the visual quality and aesthetics, even with the likes of the hub elements and the speedometer and so forth, if you look at the likes of the Sport Superbike 2 game that came out, it's the only one out of the variety of games that are on this list that actually looked somewhat different to what was seen in the originals, bar the graphics, as they were all very similar. But Sport Superbike 2 had you racing a lot more on Arctic style tracks, where you were racing in more colder regions. So that was a different way of looking at it in many regards. But like with some of the other Superbike games on the system, like from other budget developers and so forth, the reality is yes, while these selection of games here are considered to be among the most focused simulation experiences for bike racers on the PlayStation, once you've played one, you primarily have played them all. From what I can count on this list, having tried to explore all of the games or bike racing games that the PlayStation has available to it, out of the 20 plus games that I've managed to be able to find, there is at least 5 of this style of game here that are identical to each other. And then if you look at the other games that were released as part of the likes of the All-Star Action series, you'll know those games if you see them, and they were released in abundance. There's just a massive amount of those games available on the PlayStation, and they were all just rehashes of the same game over and over, just rebranded with different names. So out of the 20 games on this list, there really is only about 8 or 10 original games. All the rest are just revisions of previous games, just with a slight few tweaks or a few variations of tracks, but they're not really any different. And this game is no different to that in all regards to it. I'll leave a link to a playlist to all of those videos in the description so that you can go and check them out, and you'll be able to see yourself how similar they are in all respects to it. But it doesn't take away from the fact that yes, it is a simulation focused game, and graphically it does have some nice graphics for what it does represent. But I always found that with these more simulation focused racers on the PlayStation, I always found that the graphics in them were always a bit dull and a bit flat compared to the more arcade focused approaches that we would normally be familiar with. When you look at the likes of Road Rash, Motor Racer, among a few others, they always had more colourful and vibrant style graphics. But I suppose that's just the reality when you're trying to create a more simulation focused approach. And it's unusual to see more budget entry developers trying to focus more on simulation aesthetics. You would expect that from high end development teams. Now while these games didn't get great reviews in the magazines, you still can't deny the fact that they are the most simulation focused racers on the PlayStation. And they do play well. It's just like I said, if you've played one, you have played them all. But it really just depends on your own preferences. Are you an arcade style player player or are you a simulation focused player. But regardless, there's very few simulation style racers on the PlayStation, and with bike racing games more specifically, these ones here, and there's about 5 of them that I can count as I've mentioned, and they're technically all the same. So if you have one, you really don't need to buy all the rest of them because they play and feel just almost identical in all respects to them. But they're all decent games regardless of which one you do decide to get or play. And if you do want to see the similarities of these games, again, check out the playlist below in the description and on screen so that you can see the games in action and you can compare how similar they look. And if you have enjoyed this video, be sure to leave it a like. And as always, keep those gaming memories alive.